Aloha! Welcome to the Bead Gallery, Honolulu. I'm Michelle, and today for TBG TV, I'm going to show you how to make a glitzy glam bracelet, which you can do also as a necklace. And this is what we're making today, using two kinds of cord, some Swarovski crystal cup chain, and a button. Let's get started. To begin, I'm going to center my button on this 2-foot piece of leather that I have. This is 1 millimeter in diameter round leather cord. So I'm going to center my button on the cord, and then I'm going to tie an overhand knot to secure it to my piece. And I want to scooch my knot pretty close to my button loop. Push against it like this. Okay, and I want to cinch it tight. Then I'm going to attach my piece of Super Mac to my leather cord. I'm going to half hitch 2 yards of Super Mac around one piece of my leather by folding the Super Mac in half and pushing the tails through that loop and then cinching tight. And I want to scooch my half hitch knot about 1 crystal width of space away from the overhand knot that's holding my button to the leather. And I'm going to pull the Super Mac down between the 2 pieces of leather like this. Now I'm going to put the crystal cup chain over the leather, and I'm going to begin wrapping the 2 pieces of Super Mac around the cup chain and the leather between each crystal. It helps if you kind of pinch the sides of the cup chain like this. Okay, and you just want to wind it nice and tight so that your crystals stay in place on the leather. I'm holding the piece in my left hand, and I'm wrapping it with my right because I'm right-handed. The only 2 things you want to keep in mind are you want to keep the leather on the bottom of the piece sitting side by side. You don't want them twisting over each other. Thus. And you want to make sure you wrap between each crystal. Don't skip any. Continue wrapping down the entire length of the cup chain until you get to the end.
Michelle, because you're using cup chain, I noticed that the chain does move back and forth. It can scrunch and it can pull longer. How do you like to treat that when you're making this bracelet?
I try to keep the crystals stretched as far apart as I can, and the way I do that is, you see I have the chain hanging over the edge like this. That kind of stretches the rest of it to its longest length. But it's actually a good thing that you have that flexibility in changing the length a bit, because if you cut too much chain and your bracelet's too long, you can tell by the time you get to the end of the piece, and you can start to scrunch everything a little bit closer together to shorten it. Okay, see, now I'm at the end of the cup chain. I'm going to wrap the Super Mac once completely around like this, and then I'm going to turn my piece. You'll notice that there's a little bit of a twist here to the bracelet because we were wrapping the threads in one direction. And to counteract that, what I'm going to do now is wrap the threads back up the length of the chain, back up the length of the bracelet, and you'll see what happens is that that twist is negated and the bracelet is now straightened out. And this second wrapping goes a lot faster because the cup chain's already stuck to the leather. So all you have to do is wrap between each crystal again, don't forget anybody, until you get back to the beginning. Much faster. Okay. And notice how we don't have that torque anymore in the bracelet, which is what we want. Okay. To finish off our piece, what I'm going to do is I'm going to separate the two pieces of thread. Okay. And I'm going to bring one behind the back of the first crystal, like this. And I'm going to wrap this thread in the opposite direction around the cup chain and the leather. The reason I'm doing that is to have that piece of thread go in the opposite direction around the leather than the first piece of thread. Let me show you how to do that one more time. Okay, I'm going to separate the two pieces of thread and bring one behind the first crystal like this and wrap it around the cup chain and the leather in the opposite direction. Now, because both pieces of thread are going in opposite directions around my leather, I can tie them together in a square knot, which I couldn't do before when they were both going around the leather in the same direction. Okay. So that's half of a square knot. It's like tying your shoe. So there's one square knot, and to be extra secure, I like to pull both pieces of thread around to the other side of my leather, or just flip your piece like I did, and tie a second square knot. And I'm pulling actually really tight and trying to cinch the thread into the leather so that your cup chain doesn't start to slide down away from the button as you wear it. I want my knot to stay intact, so I'm going to put a little drop of glue. This is Hypotube cement, which we like to use a lot for thread projects. Just going to put a little dot of glue on that second square knot that I made. And let it soak in. Okay, we don't have to do it on the first one, but if you want to, you can. Okay. And while this dries, I'm going to tie my button loop by making 2 overhand knots. Okay. The first overhand knot I want to sit right up next to the last crystal at the end of the cup chain. And I like to pull all my slack out, so I'm going to pull the tails one at a time. And I'm going to scrunch my knot as close as I can get to that crystal at the end. I'm going to tie a second square knot a little ways away, and I just want to make sure that that space will accommodate whatever size button I put on my bracelet. Okay. You can also make this space a little bit longer if you feel like you made your bracelet too short. You can add length by putting the second knot farther away than what you think you need to accommodate the button. You don't have to worry about your button falling out so much because the 2 overhand knots actually pinch the 2 pieces of leather together, so you don't have to worry that your button loop will open up even if the bracelet's a little on the big side. Okay, so now I have my 2 overhand knots tied, which make up my button loop. So when you want to put it on, you just push the button between the 2 pieces of leather, like that. If you're making this bracelet as a gift and you're not sure what size wrist your recipient has, you can tie another knot and make a second loop to make the bracelet even longer, just in case they have a larger wrist than you anticipated. Like this. That way you can choose between the first loop or the second one. Now it's adjustable. And if the person doesn't need that additional loop, they can just get a scissors and cut it off. That's cool. Okay. Finally, to finish off the threads, all I'm going to do is get a very sharp scissors and trim my thread away very close to the knot that I made and glued. And hopefully the glue is dry. And you're just going to trim your leather tails. You don't want to trim right up against the knot because sometimes that knot can loosen and then it will come out if you trim the tails too close. If you want an extra secure knot on your leather, you can dab a little bit of glue on that knot and then trim your tails away. But you always want to leave at least 1/4 inch of leather past your knotted section, like this, in case the knot happens to come loose. Thanks for joining me today on TVG TV to do the Glitzy Glam bracelet. And if you feel like you don't really want to make your own Glitzy Glam bracelet, although you do because it's really fun, you can come in and I can always help you make one, or I can make it for you. Just tell me what colors you want and I'll be happy to do it. See you again. Bye bye.